Welcome to the only non-AI session in today's program. Although, who are we kidding? I'm sure we'll talk about AI and elections before our time is up. I'm John. I'm a journalist from the Philippines. It's my happy task to serve as moderator of an excellent panel. Altogether, the six of us represent just under 1.5 billion registered voters. That's a whole lot of votes. You can read our distinguished speakers' biographies in the speaker bios. Allow me to just very quickly introduce them by name, and then their current or most recent affiliation and their country. Hsieh is from Taipei, Taiwan, is the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Store Media. Lubis is Editor-in-Chief of IDN Times and is the chair of the Indonesian Women Journalists Association. Aditi Phadnis Mehta from New Delhi, India, is a consulting editor of the Business Standard. I forgot to mention Uni is from Jakarta, of course. Saerom Shim from Seoul, South Korea, is the national politics reporter of JoongAng Ilbo. And last but certainly not least, Kamal Siddiqui from Karachi, Pakistan, is the former news director of Aj Media. Our format today is, like most narrative fiction, divided into 3 acts. In the first 30 minutes or so, I will be asking our presenters to present 4-minute presentations that contextualize their respective elections. 2 of them will speak without notes, 2 will have slides to present, and 1 will have a video. And then the second act, or the second part, for about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll have a discussion among ourselves, a little round table. And then in the last 30 minutes, starting at 3 p.m., we'll take questions from the floor. All right? So it is, we're 7 minutes in. Let's begin. So may I call on Anne, please?
Hello. Hi. Taiwan has been a country attacked by disinformation the most in the world for many, many years. And I just share some of my experience. I got a message 2 months ago from an old friend. He used to be the editor-in-chief of a newspaper in Taiwan. He retired now. The message was about 4 F-16 fighters flew to PRC and surrendered. And in the beginning, I thought it was fake news. So I sent to my editor-in-chief and then to the Department of Defense. They found it was really fake news, happened 2 years ago. But Taiwan Fact Check Center, there are many fact check centers in Taiwan because we got a lot of trouble like this. And they checked it, they found actually this message happened 20 years ago. So it repeated again and again. That's terrible, yeah. And this year in January, we had our president election, the first in the world, yeah. And so Taiwan AI Labs, an NGO, it published the world's first Gen AI report on coordinated accounts and elections. I just share some of the key findings about that report. First, some of the key numbers. They found 30,000 troll accounts happened in Taiwan last year. That's huge. And 2 million topics on social media manipulated by those troll accounts. So you can imagine those numbers are growing, yeah. And they found actually those troll accounts attacked some Taiwanese figures each month. It happened frequently. I just mentioned one example. Last September, there are egg shortages in Taiwan, and our Minister of Agriculture resigned after 3 weeks intensive attacks by those troll accounts. So they won. And later, one of the key findings that about our former president, President Tsai, her website on FB, one of 3 messages belonged to trolls. So you can feel how seriously that issue. And one interesting fact, they find those troll accounts are bilingual because they attacked Taiwanese political figures in Mandarin, and they attacked, also they spread anti-American issues in English. So they are quite smart, yeah. And so according to Taiwan AI Labs, they detect those troll accounts' behavior for 1 year, and they publish after the election. They try to monitor the behavior of troll accounts. And so finally, what lessons can we learn? Sadly, they say, because the huge volume of the troll accounts and their topics, how can you debunking rumors? It's no longer effective because there are so many, yeah. And so from my own point of view, I think the education, media literacy should be very important in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Uni?
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me, ISO Center. I cover elections since 1992, and this 2024 election, according to me, and most of the pro-democracy activists say that this is the worst election ever in Indonesia. Why? Because under Suharto, 32 years regime, we don't expect anything, especially about democratic election and free, fair, and justice. But not under Jokowi, who really supported at the beginning by the media and also the pro-democracy. And Jokowi, for the first time, also for the first time in Indonesia history, the son of the existing president ran on the election as vice presidential candidate. This is the first time in history. There is 3 candidates, but I will focus more on the elected president because this is related with the use of AI, deepfake, and all the things. Please run my video as presentation.
Apalagi kau bela-bela anting-anting.
On the 14th of February 2024, Indonesia held the world's biggest direct presidential election, the world's largest single-day election. Around 204 million voters casted their ballots to elect new president. As a nation with 17,000 islands and 278 million population, separated by 3 time zones and an overall area larger than the United States, elections in Indonesia are considered complex. Younger Indonesians, significant voters with around half of the registered voting population being under the age of 40. The usage of social media was particularly active, with Indonesia having the second largest population of TikTok users in the world behind the US. The growth of Instagram is particularly quick, with Facebook remaining popular and Jakarta described as the capital of Twitter or X. Prabowo, who has partnered with Gibran Rakabuming Raka, the eldest son of President Joko Widodo, performed differently. Prabowo, who has formerly portrayed as stiff and temperamental, has been repackaged as a charming, cuddly grandpa-like figure. But this time, misinformation is not only problem. Prabowo's style of toxic positivity campaign create challenge for fact-checker and redefine misinformation and disinformation from that we knew.
Kita akan berkumpul untuk menentukan nasib bangsa kita.
The Golkar party that supported the Prabowo-Gibran coalition similarly utilized deepfake technology as campaign material, utilizing photos and recordings of former President Suharto, who previously ruled Indonesia for 32 years as a dictator. Prabowo, who has owned the son-in-law of Suharto, was supported by the Suharto family in the 2024 elections. Prabowo, who won 58.6% of the votes, is a controversial figure. As a former son-in-law of President Suharto and a special commander under Suharto regime, has been accused of previous involvement in human rights abuse, including the kidnapping of student activists during the Suharto era. Prabowo himself was discharged from the military over said allegations and was banned from entering the US for 2 decades. Prabowo, who rarely gives interviews, once in a political speech before his supporters during his campaign, promised to guarantee the freedom of press. Prabowo said that to guarantee democracy, we will guarantee freedom to associate and express opinions as well as give the press freedom. Even in the era of President Jokowi, who initially received support from the media and pro-democratic activists, the Indonesia Press Independence Index fell. The Indonesia Press Freedom Index for 2023 has decreased, ranking 108 out of 180 countries surveyed, falling under the category of partially free. Observing the previous track record of Prabowo, the public, including the press, are rightly worried about the independence of the press and democracy in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Oni. We have truly met the enemy, and the enemy is politics disguised as entertainment. Aditi?
So this is, I find it more comfortable to speak standing up. So a friend of mine who is also a politician told me rather wryly once that it is the fundamental right of journalists to be wrong. I have to report that I was conclusively, spectacularly, gloriously wrong about my assessment of the Indian general election that is just over. The election was fought for 545 seats for the Indian lower house, the Lok Sabha, which was crucial for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party and the opposition Congress alike. But it was also crucial for the democratic ecosphere in India, where the intrusion of the state in free speech is insidious and it is growing. And also for the actors who are directly and indirectly associated with the business of democracy in India, and I promise you it is a business. My own assessment at the end of the campaign that I covered extensively was that the BJP would get out of 545 up to 300, down slightly from 303 that it had got the last time. In fact, it ended up at 240, which was 63 seats fewer than it got last time, and had to go cap in hand to alliance partners to get support to shore up their majority. But, and in India there's always a but, the BJP's vote share in the last election was 37.7%. In 2024, it was 36.56%. So a drop of 0.6% cost it 63 seats. This is part of the Indian process of first past the post system, where if the opposition is united, the ruling party finds it harder. If the opposition is divided, the ruling party finds it easier to win elections. The BJP is still, so in other words, the BJP is still in power with a reduced majority. It still controls 14 states on its own and 5 more in alliance with other partners. In absolute terms, the number of total votes it got went up from 229 million in 2019 to 239 million in 2024. So the reports of its demise are grossly exaggerated. It is still there. What does this mean for the economy, politics, and geopolitics of India and the surrounding regions? 3 or 4 very general takeaways. Now, in this term of the BJP, which is the third term uninterrupted, unless there is greater consensus on federally promoted projects and reform, economic reform is going to be quite difficult to handle in this term. That has its implications for India's growth as an economy. India is touted as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Unless India reforms internally, it's going to become harder for the economy to grow at the rate at which it has been growing. The BJP is conducting a massive internal exercise to understand why it lost seats. And one of the 2 reasons which are topmost in the agenda are the issue of unemployment and high food prices and associated problems. We can discuss how it's going to address that later, but the question is, the issue is that it has to undertake remaining reform in order for growth, and that is going to become harder in this term. Politics within the BJP will now surround succession. Mr. Modi is well advanced into his 70s, and people inside the BJP who are talking to us are telling us that, well, we did everything that Mr. Modi asked us to do, but we still lost. So, maybe the problem is not with us, it's with him. There are predictably many leaders who are putting themselves up as successors to the top job. And we can have a discussion in the question and our section of this meeting to figure out who they are and what they want. But the fact is that there is a group which is saying that Mr. Modi was nationalist, all right, but there is a group in the BJP which is saying that maybe he was too nationalist. But there is another overwhelming group in the BJP which is also saying that he was not nationalist enough, which has implications for the worldview that India is going to have. This leads us to the social fabric of India, which is the treatment of the minorities, a subject with which the West is very fascinated and is, very concerned, perhaps not entirely justifiably sometimes. But it is an instrument which could lead to intangible impact on India in the future. India has a Muslim minority, as I'm sure most of you know, which is around 14%, and a smaller Christian minority, which is around 2%. And there have been demands about equal treatment of minorities. This leads us to the BJP's fundamental premise that for far too long, the minorities have got privileges which should belong to which should not be taken away from the taxpayer, and they should be treated as anyone else. In our country, in the past, because of the specific role played by minorities, they have been always treated as privileged citizens, in the sense that they opted to stay on in India when they had the choice to go to Pakistan. And their rights have always been on a par with the majority. This whole rubric is sought to be reinterpreted now. And going forward, this has very disturbing implications for India's social fabric. In terms of geopolitics, India could face much more aggressive scrutiny by the neighboring countries, most of which are grappling with problems of their own, and in many cases do try to project it as a problem caused by India. I think at no other time has India been a factor in the domestic politics of neighboring countries more than it is today. But in terms of the extended neighborhood, including China, it could be seen as being more assertive, not less assertive. So these are some quite provocative and speculative premises on which Mr. Modi is embarking on his third term. And I'm happy to address these when we come to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aditi. Saerom, please.
Thank you, John. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I feel like I should introduce myself a little bit because it seems like all the other panelists are way more experienced than me. Well, deputy editor-in-chief, editor-in-chief, consulting editor, and news director. I need to take a breath. So much honor to be here. This is my first time attending this conference. I think my editor sent me here instead of him because he trusts my English is not bad, but you know, editors are not always correct, right? So, well, I'm currently a journalist for the political desk. That's why I'm with my laptop. And I'm covering with PPP, People Power Party, the ruling party of South Korea. I started my job 2010. Since at the time, there have been uncountable changes in national politics in South Korea. Maybe you know the term dynamic Korea, don't you? And I'm writing at least 4 or 5 articles per week these days. Pretty hectic life. I finished my PowerPoint slides just 1 hour before yeah, the session beginning. So, and for this year, the biggest political event is definitely the general election on 10th of April. I will tell you about the political and technological implications of the event. So, okay. Yeah, first of all, let me tell you about what's going on in South Korean politics. We elected new 300 assembly members in April. Their term is 4 years. They started their duty about a month ago on 30th May. The DP, the lower, the blue, yeah. The DP Democratic Party, an opposite party, won a big victory in the general election. Now they occupy 170 seats out of 300, which means they has grabbed a dominant majority position in every national operation. They are breaking and discouraging government policies such as national pension reformation, tax reduction, or labor market flexibility, etc. DP is also strongly insists that several special investigations are inevitable because they want President Yoon and his wife to be potential suspects. But PPP, the ruling party, is having trouble to find the critical way to deal with DP. They still have 109 seats in the assembly, but they don't come up with an effective counterplan except boycott to all assembly schedules. Yes, so ruling party they boycott to all assembly schedules nowadays. So it seems like they need a clear turning point after being defeated in the election. PPP just decided to elect their new leader on 23rd July. So we'll see whether they can find an answer or not. And now you can see some pictures which reflects the extreme political conflicts among South Koreans. Well, these pictures are not real. I captured them from a deep fake video which appeared random online communities in January. The president and his wife. 3 months before the general election, this fake video was appeared. In that video, President says, "I want soju with good quality beef," while his wife blames him. "What are you doing, dumb? I'm slimness to maximize our family wealth." Yeah, it's very sarcastic. 2 years ago, in presidential election, Yoon from PPP beat Lee from DP by narrow margin. Yoon got only 0.73% point more than Lee. Yeah, it was very close. So after that, the political conflict in South Korean society has worsened than before. We know that political polarization is now a worldwide phenomenon, but when it comes to South Korea, Yoon and Lee, both politicians' supporters, are being extremely aggressive and tricky these days. That's why that kind of video has, that kind of video. But when it comes, this video was so sarcastic and looked like a real. Fake propagandas swam everywhere, but all of my team members were pretty shocked when we watched it. I think some people got to believe that, oh, Yoon family would discuss and act in a wrong way after watching the fake video. So I think AI is getting cleverer. It affects people's decision more and more, while the legacy media, newspaper or broadcasting is losing its credibility slowly. So all journalists are concerning. I insist that we should struggle to keep the value of journalism, which makes the society informed and think in a reasonable and rational way. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Saerom.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And thank you for lowering our age, our average age on this panel. Yes, please. Yeah. Last but not least, come out.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a pleasure, like John said, and what you said, you're just going to say that we're much older than you. And, well, we are, but that does not take anything away from you. I just wanted to talk about Pakistan's elections, 2024, and the lessons that we come across. So basically, Pakistan has now emerged as the world's 5th largest democracy, 128 million registered voters. But as a journalist, I sort of question the whole system, because in 1988, I was a young man about to go into university, and one of the most memorable moments for me was when Benazir Bhutto took oath. And we had great hopes. We had great hopes for Pakistan's democracy. We had great hopes for Pakistan's media, freedom of expression, human rights. And after this 30, 40-year journey, I just wanted to sort of talk a bit about where we stand today. So the most interesting thing about these elections that took place in 2024 is that more than 60% of the voters were under 35. And that's very important. This is the first time it happened in Pakistan. It also played a big role in how people voted. But in the problem was that in our elections, it's usually what we call the establishment, Pakistan's establishment. That's a polite way to call the military and the bureaucracy. And they're so well entrenched that this time around the elections were about who will the establishment work with. So I question the whole premise of the elections in such a way that it was Imran Khan's PTI and everybody else. So that's where we stood at that time. And by that time, if you remember, Imran Khan had been put in jail. Most of his candidates had been removed. They were not allowed to stand for elections. And also the fact that a number of his supporters had been jailed for various reasons. So if we look at the stakes actually in Pakistani elections is that the continuing dominance of Pakistan's establishment as against a democratically elected government. I mean, this is something that's been going on. It's a cycle where I feel more than anything else, it is the politicians who are to blame because they're willing to compromise and they're willing to sort of get into bed with the establishment, and they're willing not to form that alliance that they should and to work towards democracy. The forecast at that time was that Imran Khan would be in a position to form the government. But that didn't happen. And what we saw instead was that in a democracy, I mean, the person who gets the most votes or the party that gets the most votes should form the government. Now, what Aditi said as well about India, Pakistan, the interesting thing is this time around in the elections, the party that got the most votes could not form the government. And gradually what happened, like what you said, the ruling party, in our case, the establishment made sure that the party that got the most votes could not form the government, and they cobbled together a coalition government, which is in power right now. And for me, the sad part is that parties like the party of Benazir Bhutto, the Pakistan People's Party, and Nawaz Sharif, who have stood previously for democracy, these parties compromised. And that for me is a sort of it's a worry in terms of the future of democracy in Pakistan. And it's also a worry for me because at one time we're talking about Pakistan being the 5th largest democracy. And if this is what democracy is about, there's going to be a lot of anger, which you can see in Pakistan. There's a lot of anger amongst Pakistanis about how the elections have gone and how the government has been formed. In Pakistan, election engineering has become a science. And it's not on the election day that the vote is decided. It's decided some days before, some days after. And one of the things I wanted to share with you is that one of my descriptions is that I'm a former news director. And the reason why I'm a former news director is that I was running a news channel for the past 2.5 years. And the interference was so much. There came a time when I would get a call which would say that take this person on your left, take this person on your right on the screen, make sure the person on the left, his audio is shut off, and the person on the right, his audio is on. Do it like this. And that's when I thought I had two options. One was that I could tell him that, why don't you come and do my job for me? But I know they don't have a sense of humor, so I just shut up. And that's when I decided that I think I can serve no purpose being in the mainstream media. And my final point, I think, is the role of the media in Pakistan now and in terms of the elections as well. I think mainstream media has become irrelevant. And when we talk about the future of facts, one of the things that I worry about is that facts have been compromised so much, and how the narrative has been built, that is a cause for worry. And what's happening now is that a lot of Pakistanis, especially the younger Pakistanis, rely on the social media for their information. They rely on the social media for all their sort of what they believe is true, which itself is a very dangerous trend because much of that social media is not authentic, and there's a lot of disinformation. We talked about trolls. There are lots of trolls out there. There are lots of disinformation. Major parties now have cells that basically propagate disinformation. So it's a worry for me, and I would welcome questions. I'd like to hear your point of view as well. So thank you for listening to this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Kamal. There's so much here to deal with. I only have 5 minutes for the second act, so maybe let's see if I can put in a couple of questions. My first question is for Aditi and for Anne, and I hope I have time for a second question. Aditi, you spoke of being spectacularly, gloriously wrong, and that reminded me of mainstream media's dependence on surveys. Our focus is on election coverage, election reporting. How should we, and also, Anne, I think there was some turmoil when it came to anticipating who would win the presidency of Taiwan. How should we cover surveys now? Aditi first and then Anne.
Well, I have to say that joining me in my spectacular wrongness was also psephological pundits. In India, this is a very big industry now, and most of them were also wrong. So, I mean, you can draw comfort from that, I guess. So how do you cover an election? You go to people, you talk to them, you try and understand their underlying fears, apprehensions, expectations, ambitions, and you try and extrapolate that with the performance of the local candidate. You try and extrapolate that with the image of the government and how it is seen by people and so on. In the last run-up to the last 2 weeks or 1 month run-up to the elections, there was a kind of a narrative that was started which promised, or rather fear, which promoted the fear that the government would, if it got too big a majority, would end programs of affirmative action for the low-income groups and socially lower groups in Indian society. This caused a huge amount of damage to the BJP. So this was a kind of a self-goal, and it was BJP MPs who themselves said that we need to have a very big majority so that we can amend the constitution and remove this reservation in government jobs, in education, and so on, for those who are socially lower down in Indian society. That, I think, the BJP did not factor in, and that was one reason for the result as it was.
Thank you. Anne?
Before the election, there were three parties, three candidates. The margins was quite thin. And so from my company, my media, we usually cover as many as possible, not only one source. Yeah, just because there are many NGOs or media, they have polls, so we can compare. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. My second question is for Uni and Saerom. I'd like you to respond to something that Kamal raised. Saerom, I can't help but think when I saw the deep fakes that you presented, they look suspiciously like the K-dramas I watched. They look quite real. And Uni, you showed us, the social media blitz of Prabowo. My question for the two of you is, do you agree with Kamal's point that mainstream media has become irrelevant because the image building is now done through culture industries, the creative economy, social media? Uni first and then Saerom.
I think the trend is there. For example, only last week, the agency under the president that responsible to teach about our ideology, Pancasila, asked more $6 million more budget to do the socialization. And they said that almost a half of it, it's cost for influencer, TikTok, and YouTuber. Even the government agency Now it's more to the social media content creator. So that's the problem that we always discuss among the mainstream media like us, whether we still relevant or not. But we're still optimistic because the election is different with the COVID. During the pandemic COVID, 70%, according to survey, people believe to mainstream media. But the election is different. And also because the youngster is not consuming the mainstream media, they are on TikTok. I just checked that even in June 2024, Indonesia TikTok user is become #1. United States #2. So it's really worry because the algorithm of TikTok is really critical because their algorithm, they push content. So yes, I agree that the media should be more creative. That's why we in the mainstream media now distributing our content also on all of the social media platform. We really focus on how our news also produced in like short video form, which is very popular among youth audience, and IDN Times really targeting on millennial and audience and Gen Z.
Thank you, Saerom.
Oh, well, yeah, I agree, because people live in the social media these days. Yeah, public opinion flows in the social media, like Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, whatever, yeah. So I think legacy media companies should deal with the social medias in every effective way. In my company, they have a separate team, several teams to deal with social media users, and I'm writing an article, but I should do the broadcast, YouTube broadcast. Yeah. So I think public wants to be in the social media. So we need to deal with it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, that reminds me of something that Irene J. Liu said earlier this morning, that public information is not sourced only from journalists anymore, right? There are many other sources. We're going to take questions from the floor now. It's 3:01, 3:02. Please form a line. While you're doing that, I'm going to ask one quick question to Kamal. Kamal, you described Pakistan as the 5th largest democracy, but the scholars Ginsburg and Hook identify 3 elements of a basic democracy, and one of them is competitive elections. But you're saying that elections in Pakistan are engineered. Should Pakistan describe itself as a democracy just because they have elections?
Well, the facade of competition is there. It's not that, when I say they've engineered a science, like in terms of election, it's not that if somebody wants to stand for elections, they're not allowed to. They are, but the science is such that like we saw in this election as well, that the winning, like with the Imran Khan's party, those that could have won seats were somehow disqualified. Then other things came into play, very simple things. For example, Imran Khan is a cricketer. So his voting symbol was a cricket bat, very simple. None of his party candidates got that. They got all sorts of other symbols. Other than that, there's a system in Pakistan that to get your details about where your polling station is, you just dial a number on your cell phone and the details come. Cell phone services were suspended that day. So the target, of course, was the younger people. What is very impressive is, despite all these obstacles, that party did very well. So in that sense, yes, the facade is there of competition, and this is not something that's happened in this election. It's successively been happening. Benazir Bhutto was victimized in the same way. So, but at the same time, you're right. That is a question I ask you then.
Thank you. Questions from the floor, please. Please kindly identify yourself.
Sure. I'm Janet Steele, George Washington University, and I have a question for Uni. It was not a secret to international observers that Prabowo had a terrible human rights record, right? Not allowed to enter the US, the Indonesian army threw him out in 1998. it looked from the outside as if Indonesian media was just not reporting on this. Is that true? And according to you, and if not, why not? Why was this not a story in Indonesia? Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Janet. I think I agree. This happened less in comparison with previous election that Prabowo joined. 3 elections. This is the 4th election for Prabowo. Why? I think the media tried to up that story, but then because the opposition this time, the strongest opposition from Prabowo is from PDIP, right? The political party that Jokowi, the president, actually still the member, but he betrayed PDIP and support Prabowo because his son become the vice president. The media tried that, but then the other narrative is, yeah, but you know, remember in 2009, actually Prabowo was the vice president candidate for Megawati, so there was no issue on that. So it's become less strong for people to criticize the Prabowo. Not to mention that more and more human rights activists join Prabowo camp. So I think this is very strategically smart from Prabowo camp that they are really portray Prabowo, and Prabowo always say only the positive thing, right? Included say a good thing about Jokowi. Because one of the important factor that make Prabowo win is the support from Jokowi. This is like the incumbent. Prabowo is like the incumbent. Jokowi for the 3rd time, but the constitution is not allow for the 3rd time, right? So I think that's one of the reason the human right, the past violation is not really gain attraction anymore, because the social media pump with millions, thousands of millions content on the positive thing that pumping by Prabowo. So it's like losing the battle in social media.
Other friends also have told me because Prabowo was already Jokowi's Minister of Defense, it was very hard to attack or even point out the problems with the sitting Minister of Defense. Is that, would you agree with that?
And also as a Minister of Defense, Prabowo in terms of survey ranked as one of the best minister, one of the performing minister under the 2nd time of Jokowi. So, yeah.
Just like in the Philippines, no? Familiarity reduces contempt.
Yeah, hi, my name is Shiraz. Thank you very much, Kamal Sahab. I'm from Pakistan, Lahore. I'm a bureau chief of a local news channel, also senior vice president of Lahore Press Club, which is the biggest in Pakistan. Kamal Sahab has elaborated a lot of things, but you know, on the first hand, which we are witnessing, there are many things which he didn't mention, like we are being dropped down 2 points more in the journalism index rating as well. Sir, my question is, anyone who can answer this as well, don't you think that this is actually a power rifting between China and America in this particular region? Like, because there were some allegations on the Americans while removing the Imran Khan government, and now we see that the Chinese are supporting this government as well. So we can see this in the number of other countries. For example, in Philippines, there are some issues that the previous government was backed by Chinese, and now this government is backed by American as well. So where do you see that power game by those two giants, America and China, in South Asia?
Maybe Kamal and then Aditi can answer it.
I see it in another way. I see it not in terms of China versus America. I see it in terms of how our military, who it's in bed with at that time. And you and they're playing China and America against each other. And you see this happening, and it's not something that's new. It's been happening for the past 30 years. So instead of blaming other powers, let's just blame ourselves and say that the problem is here. It's not over there. That's my point.
I can speak for India. By and large, foreign policy issues, great power rivalry, these kind of things do not become issues in elections in India. Foreign policy has, barring, I think, the last election, 2019, when Indian strikes into Pakistan kind of swung the election in favor of the BJP. Foreign policy has not really been an issue. So, but having said that, there is a debate about India's policy towards China, India's outlook towards the USA, India's very calibrated position on the Russia-Ukraine war, India's position articulated as support for Palestine, but in fact also as great support for quote unquote my good friend Bibi, which is how Mr. Modi describes him, that also. So there are nuances here, but in the election that just took place, which was the subject of our discussion, I don't think foreign policy was an issue.
Thank you.
Hi, Nikki Usher, University of San Diego. I was wondering if you could all talk a little bit more about kind of the coordinated influence operations of kind of bad actors on social media within your countries. So, and in some cases, these are not necessarily bad actors, like in South Korea, the Greegi, right, are sometimes associated with serving a very important pro-democracy function. So, can you tell me a little bit about how this political organizing is, how trolls are being recruited, and kind of are these real people? Are these bots? Is there formal political organizing? Is this grassroots? And maybe the answer is all of this, but I'd love to learn more about this from the countries represented, from folks. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. So we can have more time for other questions. Maybe Anne and then Saerom can answer this about trolls and how they're recruited and how... Anne, please.
I try to answer. According to Taiwan AI Labs, their reports, they developed an AI, Gen AI platform called Infodemic, and it found 600 troll accounts that they actually two groups tap on the Facebook, and they monitor their behavior last September to December and calculate their attacks. Yeah, so they found their volume are the highest at that moment. So you can detect. And one thing quite interesting, after the election, half of these accounts attacks disappeared suddenly. So according to Taiwan AI Labs, they explain because the budget, and so it's quite interesting. Thank you.
Okay, right. One thing in South Korean politics is very interesting. There's several online sites where political supporters are gathering, and they're talking and they're expressing their ideas on that platforms, on that site, and but sometimes extremists appears on those platforms, so we always need to watch out that sites, what kind of opinions are appeared, and what kind of fake videos or what kind of fake images are appeared. So, well, yeah, we need to always be aware of, or be aware of what kind of.
Who's behind them? Who pays for?
Oh, we don't know, but we think some kind of organized people. They are always making public opinions. So, yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Obuntika. I'm from India. My question, actually, it's very interesting. It follows the question about recruitment of trolls. What we've also seen in India is that a lot of mainstream journalists on social media almost act like trolls. So here's my question. Some of it may be ideological, but there's another problem of how media is controlled. And that has got to do with information withholding, barring people from press conferences, insulting journalists during press conferences for asking valid questions which are just uncomfortable. So all of this, and then also the business side of it, where a lot of the money in mainstream media comes from events where unless you have big ministers coming, you don't get sponsorships. So all of this together, how does one, and this obviously then becomes a case where reporting or content in media is heavily biased towards the government of the day. How does one restore the balance?
I'd like to ask Uni to answer this.
Yeah, I think that's, thank you for the question. That's a bit similar with Indonesian. I must say that the media business, the media industry is not in an okay situation, especially after the pandemic. And for Indonesian, for Indonesian media, for example, we have more than 40,000 media, which is a majority of that not healthy. So during the campaign or anything, the media mostly rely to the government-related funding, included during the election. And for example, the Prabowo camp, which is the elected president, according to the data, actually spent twice in social media to buy the advertisement, including to push the content. So not to the media mainstream this time, yeah, not to the media mainstream. So some of the journalists and the media, in order to survive, is tempted to become the propaganda of the one that expected to be the winner, because this camp is kind of like actively create the bandwagon effect. There will be only one round of election, not the second round that expect by others. So yeah, I agree with you that that's the challenge actually faces by the journalists. They want to be independent, and also the media. Of course, some of the media in a very much healthy try to do our best to become publish the truth about the election, but that's not easy, because the last one I want to point, as I say, the Indonesia election is the most complicated and complex one single biggest day election involving 820,000 polling stations. That's the ground situation, even not easy for the media to cover in very comprehensive.
Thank you. Kamal, please.
Avantika, is that your name?
Yeah.
Okay, Avantika, I'll tell you how not to do it. So what's happened in Pakistan is that when Imran Khan was Prime Minister, he had this cult following amongst journalists. And this is the first time we saw journalists actually, even in the parliament, they stood up in the press gallery and started chanting slogans in his favor. His supporters, journalists, would actually attack other journalists and say this person and so, and they had a free hand. And they did quite a lot of damage in terms of media and press freedom. Now, when Imran Khan goes and the other party comes to power, now those journalists are being now picked up. My problem is that when they're being picked up, when they're being questioned, when they're being sort of, in one case, is shot dead, the other journalists are not criticizing it. They're saying this is what they deserved. Now, in my opinion, that's not the way to go. A wrong is a wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. So, in answer to your question, I can say you cannot ignore these things as well. Just because a journalist was partial or biased or whatever that person did, does not mean that when they are being picked up or when they're being silenced, you should keep quiet and say, it goes like that, that's fine.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Yunjae. I'm from the PAC organization, but I was born and raised also in Korea. So I know that in the general election of April 10th, it was issued as the most, the youth was very participatory in the general election, none other than before. And I know that the youth is very it has a very negative image of President Yoon of like supporting rate 9%, but it's drastically different and way more positive in the population for ages of above 59. What do you think is the cause of this drastic difference in age of supporting one president? And if this cause is due to like the anonymous sites that you talked about, how do we balance this polarization? Do you have any solution for that?
Saerom?
If I have the solution, I will be other position. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm here. Well, yeah, it's a very difficult question. The youth in South Korea society, they're speaking loud. They're starting to speak loud of their voices. But I think the majority of the political society is still 40s and 50s, right? I think that is because they have economic and social. They are the majority. Yeah, that's why they that's why that kind of situation occurs. So I think we should find the solution for the polarization in politics. We can talk later on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saerom.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Muhammad Amir. I work for the News International in Pakistan. My question to Mr. Kamal Siddiqui Saab is, sir, as you rightly portrayed, a very bleak scenario of media, freedom of press in Pakistan. But as we all know, there is as much internal censorship as it is external in Pakistan. So it comes in many forms, such as constant threat of retrenchments and low salaries and delays in payments like that. So do you think the current model of media in Pakistan is sustainable? And what is the solution for journalists and journalism being sandwiched between media owners and deep state of Pakistan?
Thank you. The answer to that is I don't think it's sustainable. Pakistan is one of the few countries in the world where you have 40 news channels, 24-hour news. That's not sustainable. And that is in place because of patronage, state patronage, commercial patronage, and a system whereby each one supports the other. So you cannot sustain it like that. You can't keep on relying on patronage and favors to continue doing journalism. You are right in terms of the low salaries, the retrenchment, but that's also an international phenomenon where media is sort of, in many areas like print media, broadcast media, is sort of now giving way to digital. My great hope is in digital media. I feel that that's where the future is, and not just in terms of freedom of expression. I also feel that that's where eventually media houses will, or independent journalists will be able to sustain themselves and make money. So I have great hope in that, and also something that was discussed earlier, where you make alliances between digital platforms, news digital platforms, that I feel will sustain.
Thank you.
Hello, magandang hapon po. I'm Joe Berth from GMA Integrated News. One of the arguments or points of discussion in conversations involving social media in the Philippines is that for the longest time, journalists have tried to shy away from social media just so they will not be accused of being biased, for one, to take the position of neutrality when it comes to contentious issues. What is your position on that? Considering election periods, should journalists, but there's also a point that journalists must actually be active on social media to call out misinformation, disinformation. What's your position on that? And what's the reality in your countries with regard to journalists' presence online?
Uni, and then maybe Anne.
Thank you. Probably, I have a journalist friend, colleagues from here, Arif from Kompas. He and me quite active in X, Twitter. So it's in the level of chief editors, I didn't see any chief editor in Indonesia as active as me. I'm very active. I'm addicted to Twitter from the beginning. And then start to do the TikTok thing because I have to know what is the aspiration of Gen Z, which is my target audience. And I'm very opinionated. So I disagree with neutrality even in journalism and also my position in social media. The things that I have to keep is the balance. Not only, I mean, if Prabowo pass violation, Prabowo bad temper, I tweet that because that's the fact. Even though the campaign team tried to portray with AI with a cute photo, like he is 72, right, and tired. But because of AI, he looks cute. Yeah, he looks cute. And I make a comment about that. I think, I don't know, but I disagree with the opinion that journalists must stay away from the social media. I think I use social media also to promote the content of IDN Times and also the point of view of IDN Times editorial. So we really build on that kind of thing.
What about arguing with netizens on comments?
You know, Maria Ressa always said that women journalists face 10 times risk, bullied and doxing. Been there like 10 years ago, but now I'm immune on that kind of thing. So I agree and I deal with the argumentation on my social media.
Is there anyone else who'd like to answer? Yeah. Okay.
Just a short comment. My company, my editor-in-chief, and also other columnists, they are very active about social media to promote our viewpoint. We criticize the government very much seriously, but not me. I'm not very active on that.
By choice?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe Ward.
Thank you, too.
And the last question, please.
Hi, my name is Jabbar Chaudhry. I'm from Pakistan. My question to Aditi. You rightly mentioned, rather confessed about the misjudgment by the journalist about the BJP election results. But my question is that, in your opinion, what are the two major factors of this misjudgment and failure of the BJP in securing 400 seats in this election?
So the second part first, Mr. Modi himself said that, you know, if I'm a parent and if my son or daughter gets 90% marks in the exam, will I tell them, don't get 90%, get 85%? Or will I tell them, no, next time we'll get 100%? So this was the message he gave to this 400 mark, was the message he gave to his party workers to motivate them. So that was not the benchmark. Yeah. The benchmark for all of us who were trying to understand what was happening in the election was Modi's continued unshakable popularity in India across all ages. Manufactured, maybe, but definitely there still. The BJP may have got fewer seats, but it has expanded its presence in areas where it never existed before. It has established itself as a party by many different stratagems. More important than that, it has a massive army of people who are cheering it on, both on television and in the social media in the form of social influencers. And this is a very pernicious new brand of, I don't know, citizen journalist, something, I don't know, a commentator, social commentator, which has come up in India. and they are a pain in where the sun doesn't shine because they are so uncritical and they have low domain knowledge. So they ask all these friendly questions, and the ruling establishment gives them time simply because, you know, they will not ask questions which are tough. The foreign minister, for instance, has given extensively interviews to these influencers, but he has never given an interview, a proper one-on-one interview, to a specialist in foreign policy for an Indian newspaper. So that tells the story. So there are many ways in which the political process is sought to be influenced, and this is one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of time, but with your indulgence, let's have one more question, please.
Yeah, to what extent social media has helped to influence the election results in all 3-4 countries?
Okay, so maybe we can all answer this, but very, very quickly. How did social media help shape the election results? Let's start in reverse order.
Whether at all it has helped, because in India we've seen a lot of action happening on social media, but the results were different.
No, in Pakistan, it helped quite a lot. I mean, if we had been able to get the accurate results, it would because there's a lot, social media played a very big role in terms of the results that came out.
Thank you. Saerom?
Well, I think we cannot deny the social media's effect on any election, every election. So we should get used to it. Thank you.
Aditi?
Yeah, social media has been very important, but the opposition which had neglected social media so far is also hitting back. So it's like empire hits back, that kind of an effect. It's very important. In India, it's very important now.
Yeah, in Indonesia also very important. 2 factors that made Prabowo win the election. The first one is the support of incumbent, the support of existing President Jokowi through the distribution of social assistance very heavily. And the second is like the video that I present, the script. I wrote the script, so that's Gemoy thing, dancing, and it's really aided by the Gen Z. So Prabowo actually win more than 56% among youth voters.
Yeah, I would say it's quite influential, and there are many manipulation between social media. So I want to focus education, media literacy. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the Philippines, our new president their family created an alternative information infrastructure, especially in YouTube and then on TikTok, that helped create an alternate reality in which we are all living now. And on that note, I'd like to thank Anne, Uni, Aditi, Saerom, and Kamal. Thank you very much. You have my vote. Thank you.